Innovator's Insider Podcast. We have a couple of really special guests this week. We're going to chat with John McClary of Alternative Engineering. He is going to present us in person the model of the week. We also have Greg Brown, member of the PTC team, been with PTC for a long time, and he's with the Onshape group now, and we're going to have a chat with him about his experience and fun stuff as well. We'll also have a great tip of the week provided by Richard Doyle, of course. So Richard found some really cool stuff this week relating to stuff in the Part Studio. I'm not going to steal his thunder. And finally, we'll give you guys a little recap. Richard, you're going to lead that on the Tiny House project.
Yep. We had our first of a series of Richard's Tiny House user group meetings last night. We saw some great designs, some fun things, and I've got some images to show and some people to recognize. So looking forward to that. But I'm also looking forward to the model of the week. So Michael, why don't you introduce our first guest?
John McClary is a longtime Onshape friend, and we're so happy to have him on the call today to show off. I think it's one of the older models that you started working on back in the day when you first started using Onshape, right, John?
Yeah, this is one of the first few when I was learning Onshape.
So, John, maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, your company, and what you use Onshape for.
Okay, well, my name's John. I've been at Alternative Engineering for about 17 years. I'm a lead designer, and we've been mostly using SolidWorks, and we were trying to look for a new solution, and somebody came up to me and talked about Onshape, and it's like, what's this thing in a browser? And so I played around with it for a little bit, and that's where one of these models came from. I just model anything I could find on my desk, and calipers were one of the things on my desk. So that's what this model of the week is. And I really liked how everything was able to be done in one part studio. It's way different than having to make individual parts and trying to pre-think what each part should be and then kind of model them independently. So now I use it for spiral chutes mostly, which are a lot of complex sheet metal geometry. And
That's awesome. So doing things in a single part studio, really kind of helped you with the layout and design and do things faster, would you say?
Yeah, especially with the spiral chutes, because all the parts are all like intertwined with multiple angles, and you need to it's like putting the cart before the horse. There are a lot of circular references when I was doing it in SolidWorks. You'd have to regen them to 3 times, or now it's just one time and the whole model's done in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I remember those days. Anytime you had any kind of in-context design, if you could actually read the text at the bottom of the screen, like showing where all the references were coming from, it meant that it was taking too long. So, 2 or 3 rebuild cycles will definitely do that.
Yeah.
That's a really good feedback. It's something that I forget, when talking about part studios, like that's really one of the great benefits of it. So thanks for sharing that. Well, let's see it. Let's see your the calipers that you made.
You see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. So, like I say, I did everything in one part studio. It's a little bit naive to put 124 features into a single studio, but like I said, I was kind of learning, and everything was pretty simple, really. I worked a lot like I was familiar with, so the learning curve was really small. Then I went into the assemblies and tried to see if I can get it to work.
Oh, look at that.
With relations.
That's nice.
There you go.
And I was also trying to test how precise that would be when you do an actual measurement to the tool. 1.691. I want to see what it actually read out is 1.691.
Wow.
So I was impressed how accurate everything was in rotations. And so
great.
Yeah, so I posted this on the forum for another model of the week, which never came through. And somebody said something about, you should make that digital. So I didn't really have much experience yet, so that's where it came up. Well, maybe an odometer style, which is something I've never done before with the relations and rack and pinions. And so I got to learn a little bit making this model, and
Yeah, that's nice.
it was pretty fun.
Yeah, it's really
That's
detailed. It looks great. And
yeah, that's and the technique that you use for that too, just incredible.
It's funny because I did something like that more recently, actually, with a dial indicator, and that was fun, just measuring real things, putting digital versions of real things and then putting an analog version of it or a digital version of an analog gauge all together. It was
kind of like an Inception kind of.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Well, this is really great, John. I mean, this is, and we'll put a link here to the public model that everybody else can kind of take a look at or take a copy of for themselves and try their own hand at, some of the work that you've done here. But this is a really great model. This was done back in the day. It's really a great example of how you can use the multi-body part. So as you said, you had 124 features, and I mean, for this part, that's not that bad actually. I'm looking at the complexity here, and it's like 124 features is really nothing.
Yeah,
compared to
my favorite thing
across how many parts?
18 parts,
right?
Yeah, but my favorite thing was only 6 mates. That really sold me on Onshape.
Yeah. The less mates, less can go wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're trying to put something together as complex as all these different ratios that you're applying here, it's that's really important. So this is awesome. Thank you for sharing this, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, John.
You're welcome to hang out with us, John, for the rest of the meeting, or you can drop off, but it's up to you.
I'll stick around.
Awesome. Good.
Okay, so our special guest today is Mr. Greg Brown. I've known Greg for just a short period of time, but I'm already fascinated by all of the work that he's done. I've heard some of his stories from the past, and I'm just really impressed with this guy, and I'm glad that he agreed to be interviewed today. So please welcome Greg Brown. Hello, Greg.
All right, thank you very much. All right.
So I guess we'll start off with letting everybody know a little bit about you. So could you share a little bit of background on yourself and your career?
Sure. Right. Well, so right now I'm head of product management at Onshape. So it's a great position for me. It's kind of the culmination of 20-something years I've been in engineering software, product management. It starts back in Australia, where I'm from. So I went to school in Australia, although I did spend a couple of years going to school in the States, which started off a big cycle of movement around the globe for me, which I'll get into a little bit of. But so I'm back to Australia, finished school, and started my own company. And my own company was in the computer engineering world. And that's how I got into using a software called RASNA, Applied Mechanica. And not long after I'd started using that and consulting for other people on that, PTC bought RASNA. And so it was really part of a user conference where I was presenting, which turned into a job interview for me. And I basically joined PTC on the spot at the conference. Moved to Sydney, then moved to Melbourne. Got out of I was sort of in post-sales consulting for them for a while, but then I got into product management. It was really interesting to me. I was drawn to, the fact that you're at the crossroads of usage, of customers, of R&D, and kind of working in between all those groups and having to speak lots of different languages. And speaking of languages, I then moved to Japan. And I spent the next few years in Japan working for PTC in simulation product management. Then in early 2000s, I moved to Boston to PTC headquarters. And not long after, I joined a company called Abacus. So I spent 6 years at Abacus. I was really deep into nonlinear analysis and all those sort of things. I was chasing that dream for a while, but also in product management. And that was like the epitome of product management because there was like 180 PhD developers and about 3 others. And they needed some product management to help them. So, that was a great role. But then I rejoined PTC in product management across all the product lines. So I was working at the time with Pro Engineer and Windchill and everything. And also moved back to Japan. So then I spent essentially the next 8 years in Japan. And at the end of that period, I had this opportunity sort of just dropped into my lap, which was fantastic. I was asked to be on the due diligence team for the Onshape acquisition, for about this this tool that we were considering. Right? So I worked basically 24 hours a day for the next period of time, deeply learning everything that I could possibly learn about Onshape. And it was fascinating really from the very beginning. I'm not sure what it was like for you. You never really considered that it could be done in a browser. But then suddenly, after some period of time, you forget that you're in a browser and you're just in a design environment, which is unlike anything that I'd used in the last 20 years. And so I sort of progressively built bigger and bigger and more complicated things, and knew that I had to be part of that part of the organization should we make the acquisition come true. And we did, and I did join Onshape. So it's in the end of 2019, I joined the Onshape team, and that's where I am now. Oh, sorry, no, I left Japan and came back to Boston. So I am in Boston now. So I kind of lost count.
And I know we're lucky to have you. So for our listeners that might not be familiar, what are some of the things that a product manager does?
A product manager, I mean, there's a product management team, and I'm head of that team. So, as a group, product management is really responsible for the why and the what of a product. That the product management team is the place you point back to. It's like, why are we doing this? How does it meet the strategy? What is the strategy? On all of those sorts of things. And there's many, many groups involved in getting a product actually out the door. And Onshape is no different than any other company in that sense. Onshape does do certain things differently in the makeup of those groups, and that's all chart stuff, right? At the end of the day, it's just a product that our customers have to get benefit from. So product management is more about the what and the why, and then there's other people that get involved with the how, and then there's a lot of other people that actually do that. And that's R&D. So product management's all about strategy. It's all about understanding competitive situations and the way that the market is moving. Maybe one of the unseen things internally is keeping track of how corporate. We work for a very large company now. There's more than 6,500 people at PTC. It's a big company, so there's a lot of corporate strategies that need to filter down, and so there's a lot of liaison between different groups there. The board and executive leadership. So product management really is the face of the product for many, many different aspects.
Very nice. So keeping in mind that Paul might be listening to this webcast, are there any little things you might be working on that you can kind of let out of the bag? Or?
Yeah, I mean, 2021 has been a great year, right? There's been a lot of great stuff that's come out. And I think that if we look at the forum, the what's new comments, they've kind of been escalating in a good way, in the last few 3 weekly go rounds. But there's a couple of really big things coming, right? And I'm going to tell you what, but let's just say that the end of the year is going to go off with a bang, in a good way. I really encourage everyone to look out for the next release of Onshape. Wonderful. 2022 is going to start also with a bang in a different way, in a different sort of direction. So I think I'm really excited. I'm always excited, by the way, and that's why I so enjoy about being part of the Onshape organization, where we do have these 3 weekly sprints. So we're constantly updating things. We're not on a long period of waterfall requirements gathering, implementation, test, and then finally deliver when we've forgotten what the requirements really were at the beginning. It's not like that around here. It's extremely agile. We want our customers to be able to develop products in similar sorts of ways. Obviously it's different. Hardware product development and software product development are fundamentally different, but they can share this business agility. And one of Onshape's benefits is really in that.
So, Greg, you and I were both fortunate enough to be involved a little bit with the Battlebots team Ghost Raptor this year. And I know your involvement was much more than mine. I got to do the fun part. I got to go and I got to meet him and talk to him, and I got to watch the taping of the show. But you've been a very intimate partner with that team over the past, 6 to 9 months or so?
Has it been that long? Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you're helping that team out?
Sure. I mean, the Battlebots opportunity was great because Chuck Pitzer, who's the captain of that team, has been involved with Battlebots for a long, long time. He's one of the mainstays of the Battlebots community. And he actually goes all the way back to, the days of me working with Rasner and early days of PTC as well. So there's an interesting backstory there. The community is pretty small, really, when it comes down to it. A lot of people have worked with a lot of other people that we're involved with here, especially in the robotics community as well. So he's deep into that. Anyway, so Chuck approached us through a mutual friend who also was an ex-PTC person and ex-Rasner. So small world. And so what we did and what I've done is really, jumpstart them and bootstrap their Onshape usage. So I took a previous design into Onshape and really made it into a really nice assembly model using the primary thing that we wanted to focus on initially was configurations. Because one of their big challenges at a battle is that they have, they get drawn against the new competitor. So the more modular your structure and your robot is, the better you can plan for, the strategies. And so, obviously Onshape has, and maybe I'll get some agreement, John, that configurations in Onshape is one of the key differentiators and powerful areas you can exploit with Onshape. And so I made that the focus. It's a very configurable model. You can change the weapons, you can change the defense and armor and all those sorts of things, and play the little bit of what if, even at the side of in the pits, right at the event. So I believe I've seen some of the photos that you sent back.
Yep,
you guys were hopped over a laptop looking at changing the weapon or something.
Yep, Chuck was looking at the different configurations. He was working with some of the animations that you had set up in there, and they were getting ready to prepare for the next battle. And it was fun to watch, and I got to follow along on the phone, which was cool.
Talking of phones, and that was over a weekend, I believe. Was it a holiday weekend, there was a weekend, and I happened to be up in Vermont, and I was out fishing with my son. And I was getting all these messages from you, I think, Richard, saying, Chuck's having a little, I know maybe Chuck sent them, but anyway, I was getting messages saying, I'm having a few problems with this configuration. Can you take a look? And I did actually use my iPhone while I was standing knee deep in a river on a 4G connection to adjust, to edit, and actually to create a different configuration for Chuck. And I don't believe you guys even knew that I was doing that, or it didn't matter.
Yeah, no, I mean we were aware that you were helping out, but I had no idea you were standing knee deep in a river somewhere. That's an awesome story. And it says a lot about you and your the way you treat your customers too. So good job, Greg.
Thanks. No, it's fun. It's all good fun, and I think that we want to live this way. We want to develop the product the same way that our customers, expect them to be able to be agile and respond to their customers as well. So,
well, we'll have members of the team on, I think, our next episode. Okay. We'll be interviewing them in anticipation of the new Battlebots season getting started right around the 1st of January, the telecasts start. So fantastic. Well, Greg, that's a great story. I love your whole background. Michael, is there anything else you wanted to ask Greg?
Yeah, there was one thing. It was kind of related to when you were doing your due diligence, for Onshape, right? That was, working 24 hours a day. I mean, that's like, what was the tipping point for you when you were like, wow, we really have to do something here. This is like,
well, I think that there was a couple of tipping points, and one of them was the realizing, that CAD in a browser, I mean, it sounds kind of cute and interesting at the time, but when you get past it and you realize it doesn't matter and it's just as powerful, and I'm spinning models around just the same way that I would as if it was in a desktop product. That's first realization. And the second one is that I've been kind of sharing, I would finish my day's work at the office and I'd just walk away from the computer that was there. And then I'd pull out my iPhone on the train on the way home and continue. And I'd just pick up exactly in the document where I was before. I'd get home to my Mac, which was at home, and then I'd continue on that. And that I could just walk away from any of the devices anytime. I could throw it out of the window and it didn't matter because all of my data was safe. And it got to me, I've coined this term about fearless innovation or fearless cat, where I'm unburdened from a lot of things. Like I don't care. I'm not worried about having to make copies. I'm not having to make backups. And with that, then, as I became more sophisticated in using Onshape, I learned the beauty of branching and merging and simultaneous, all of those sorts of things. And that was more fearless CAD, because I could make massive changes to an assembly, not worrying that I was going to break everything irretrievably, which I had experiences of doing in the past. So,
I think we all have.
yeah, I mean, I looked at old laptop backups and I could see like 6 or 7 whole directory copies, sort of just in case .1, and all of those other things. And now with Onshape, there was none of that. So it really is a different feeling when you're using it, this fearlessness. So that was a tipping point.
Nice.
And I shared that with the team, and I think that was a telling moment.
Yeah, I love the fearless, hashtag fearless CAD. It's like, that's really how I've been describing Onshape a lot to people a lot lately too. So thank you for coining that. It's really it's a pleasure working with you, Greg, and we're really lucky to have you on the team.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Richard.
Yep. Thanks very much, Greg. Great to have you. So, Michael, I think some of our listeners probably know that I used to travel around quite a bit, and I used to do presentations at user group meetings. And one of my favorite types of presentations was the tips and tricks. What a lot of people may not know, even though I tried to give credit every time, is none of those tips were actually mine. They were things that I had learned from other users and gathered together and put together in a PowerPoint and put together a 1-hour presentation of stuff that other people had taught me. But I think I found one of my own this time. So if you'll indulge me for a second while I share my screen. So this is a part of my tiny house, and I've been trying to get much better about being very diligent about my models. Things like making sure that I'm naming things correctly, and so that I can go back into my tree and I can know exactly where I need to be for a certain thing. And I try to keep my appearances and my materials set as best I can. But every now and then I get an idea and I think, okay, I need to add something to this. So I've decided for my cabinet here, I want to add a little rim around the side. So I've got my sketches already done here. So I'm going to go ahead and get a couple of these. We're going to add new items to this. Let's make it about 0.5. It's just
look at that. You didn't create a sketch. You just picked 2 surfaces and it's just going to create 2 parts. I mean, just right there.
Yeah. Well, that sketch. Yeah. No, that sketch was there, Michael. But you say, I was able to select just portions of it.
Yeah.
And I can do the same thing for the end pieces. And we'll just use an up to face. But notice now that these are all new parts. You can see them down here, 37, 38, 39, and 40, but they lack material and they lack an appearance. So the first thing I'm tempted to do is right click here and say, edit appearance. Well, I don't remember offhand which appearance I had put on the rest of my parts. So I can go back and I can look at this and I can say, maybe look at this edit appearance and I can look, okay, so it was that brown color 723. That seems like a lot of work. So as I was kind of playing around with this, I know you can apply an appearance to several different parts at the same time. So I went ahead and I selected all those parts. And then I did my right click, edit appearance. And what I noticed was it picked up the appearance of the very first part that I selected. And I had an epiphany. So I went back and I picked a part that had the appearance that I wanted.
Drum roll.
And now when I assign material, not material, I want appearance, Richard. It defaults now to the very first one that I selected. And now the appearance is the same on all 3.
That's great.
So I asked around. I asked a couple of the folks if they had ever seen this before, and I got no responses. So I am going to actually take credit for this tip. And that's what I have for today.
That's awesome. Yeah, and then the appearances have become quite rich. In the last 6 months or so, I think we added that appearances panel, and that panel really gives you a great launching point to kind of work with many of the parts. You can even configure the colors.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
and I'll tell you what, the appearance panel saved my rear end the other day. And I'm really glad that we have that. So,
can I add to that tip?
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, if you have an assembly now and you throw up a bill of materials, then add a column into the bill of materials, which is appearance. And you can edit that appearance from the bill of material at the assembly level.
Very nice.
And same with material as well. So should you want to be doing that sort of a thing, rather than having to find the part studio where those appearances or materials are defined, just throw it straight from the assembly.
Great. Yeah. I'll be looking into that for sure.
Yeah, it's quite a novel concept. You can actually edit the material selection from the bill of materials. It's great.
How about that?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
Onshape is so awesome.
Yeah, typically you can actually put a spreadsheet and copy the BOM, and then scroll down, or pull it down and copy all the columns and all the rows, and then paste it back in. Now you can do 1,000 parts in 1 second.
Bulk operation. Wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's a great quickly. Tip, there you go.
Wow, our quick tip of the week escalated into like 4 tips of the week. Outstanding.
It usually does. That's what happens at the user group meetings too.
Yep. Hey, and speaking of user group meetings, we had a great one last week. We had the first of our Finish Richard's Tiny House user group meetings. And for those of those listeners or viewers that don't know what that is, Brian LaGrange, one of our user group advisory board members, came up with a fun idea for a community project. My tiny house is very incomplete, so we were looking for some interesting ideas, some innovative ideas, maybe even some wacky ideas for my tiny house. And we had several participants at the meeting last week, and they came with some really great designs. So let me go ahead and show that. So starting off in the lower right, Brian LaGrange is the one that actually suggested this little project, and I'm grateful to him for that because we had a lot of fun with it. He has designed a fold-up barbecue for the patio out in back of my tiny house. This thing folds up into a nice compact space that's easy to store. And it's got hinges, and it's got interesting little cutouts where everything all fits in real nice. And well, he's not building it for my tiny house, at least not yet. They are in the process of building one of these right now. So we should be seeing those on social media or on the forums at some point. I'm sure he'll get some pictures. In the upper right is John Hawk, designed me a combination coffee espresso machine. This is his own design. He's got some interesting concepts inside it. One of the things that he's done that some of the other machines don't do is he's introduced hot water into one of the heads there that kind of helps get things going. So your espresso, I guess, gets made a little bit faster. And our model of the week guest, John McClary, is working on a collapsible poker table for me. I've been assured by John that he's still working on the drink cutouts, maybe even some chip pocket cutouts. So I'll be interesting to see when that's finished. And then finally, the lower left-hand corner there, Michael Pascoe, he decided that my bathroom was too crowded. So he did a little something else with the shower. You can kind of see it through the door and the window here. A really cool model of the shower curtain there. And he's got that bow in it, which I absolutely love. If you stayed in hotels nowadays, they've got those bowed out shower curtains, which, it doesn't make it feel like you're in a tiny little closet while you're taking a shower. And he also did this siding with a feature script called Texture. Did a really great job on this and was able to automatically do all the cutouts and all the trim. He showed us that feature script and how it worked, and it was really a lot of fun. So this project is still going. We'll put the link to the forum post, which has all the information, has a link to the public model. It's still ongoing, and we expect to have several more of these meetings where people can come in and show off some of these things that they do. So like I say, we'll make sure that we put the links in the chat, and hope that everybody will participate in this little project. So I want to thank John McClary, John Hawk, Michael Pascoe, and of course, Brian LaGrange for their help with this.
Yeah, those look like great. I mean, that folding poker table, pretty cool.
Yeah. I saw, I was, we didn't go through, top to bottom on the models, but I was looking at the tree over there, and I saw a gear made in there. I'm pretty sure he did something pretty interesting with that gear mate. So.
Yeah, that's how it will fold up, so you can see how it goes from flat to. You can see it in your picture how it's kind of folding up in a weird way.
Yep. Yeah. One of these days I'll hopefully get some animations of that done, and we can take a look at how that folds up. So that's
having like
fun.
an origami type.
Yep.
Yeah. The real amazing thing about the that other one with the paneling, that was one feature that did all the paneling was one feature.
Yep. Yeah. Amazing stuff. So that's pretty much it, I think, for this week. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of fun, a lot of good stories, and we all learned something. So that all the goals have been hit.
Yep, and we certainly want to thank our guests, Greg Brown and John McClary. We've got a great show coming up next time. Like I think I mentioned earlier, we'll be interviewing 3 members of Battlebots team Ghost Raptor. I think we're going to have an Onshape release to talk about, right, Michael?
Yeah, by then.
And yep, we'll have our model of the week and our newest segment that we plan to continue, our tip of the week. And we'll talk about the upcoming user group meetings. So I had a great time. Thanks, everybody. Michael, last words?
Thank you.
Short and sweet. I love it. Take care, everyone. And don't forget, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, all that stuff. I'll say that every time. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. See y'all later. Bye.
See you.